work harder on yourself than you do on your job. If you work hard on your job, you can make a living. If you work hard on yourself, you can make a fortune.
This is Internal Rate of Return with Amanda Alexander. In today's episode, we meet Ashton Levarek. Ashton founded Valkere Investment Group, where he is a managing partner and acquisitions manager. He is also a retired Air Force Special Warfare pararescue jumper, a sniper, and combat diver with over 10 combat deployments and 21 years of experience working within U.S. Special Operations. Thank you so much for your service. A passion project of his involves building a group of financially free veterans, independent leaders, husbands, and fathers through superior mindset training and investing. He has successfully scaled from $25,000 to $90 million in rentals and wrote the book, The Vacation Rental Millionaire Method, which you can find at programs.valkereacademy.com. Ashton is also the host of the Art of Winning podcast, with new episodes released every week. He now lives in Costa Rica with his wife, Vivian, their 2 little girls, and they enjoy traveling the world. And Ashton loves teaching his daughters how to surf and snowboard. Ashton, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. That's quite an intro. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's so many cool things about you. I could dig into any part of it. Before we jump in, I like to do a moment of presence and ask, what do you feel grateful for in this moment?
Oh, that's an amazing question. I love that. It's a great way to center the beginning of the conversation. What am I grateful for? I'm grateful that I get the opportunity to live and work on my passions. I think for so long, we get caught up in the churn of life that we forget what we're doing, why we're doing it, right? And the opportunity to do that is what I'm grateful for. Yeah.
Awesome. I love that you have pets over in Costa Rica too. There was this dog rescue farm that I wanted to visit when I was living there. I never got around to it, but I probably would have brought home 17 dogs if I did. So
They got plenty of dogs here.
yeah. Yeah. I love that you're bringing that up though. This is exactly tailored to that type of audience where you may be really high performing in your job and you're in the grind, but you are losing a sense of purpose or drive that, maybe you want to return to so that you can live your passions. And it's really exciting that I get to sit down with somebody who's doing that. So congratulations on your achievement. A little bit. Yeah, thank you. So what does your real estate portfolio look like today?
So we tend to talk a lot about Airbnbs because that's most people that come to us. A lot of people that come to us are beginners in real estate, and we just find that we found that was one of the highest cash flowing assets and one of the easiest for new beginners to grasp, because almost everybody at this point has stayed in an Airbnb. And so that's usually what we talk about when people ask us about that. But the reality is, like, the majority of our portfolio is multifamily properties, and then we have 1 hotel as well. So we have 5 Airbnbs in our personal portfolio, and we have a fund that we've purchased probably at this point about 80 or 90 Airbnbs alongside some partners. And then the rest is apartment complexes and then that 1 hotel.
Awesome. Where are your apartment complexes?
Okay, so we are in 6 different states at this point. So Texas, Tennessee, North Carolina, and we were in Florida. We sold that one. Okay, so yeah, the rest are Airbnbs. Yeah. Oh, and Ohio. Sorry, Ohio was the 4th one. Yeah.
So all the hot markets, Ohio, Florida, North Carolina, Tennessee, Texas. Very cool. I'm actually working on my first syndication, 124 units in Oklahoma, and I'm super excited to be
awesome.
part of it. So to make sure I'm tracking, you are a general partner on those different apartment complexes. And how many units roughly do you have there?
So at one point we had about 1,000, which, honestly in this game is not that much, but so in 2022, the market was so hot, we were able to sell a lot. We exited a lot of our properties. I think we're at close to around 700 units at this point.
Awesome.
Because we sold and then bought some more since then. But yeah,
How are you?
we sold probably half our portfolio in 2022.
It was a good year, and buying,
It was a good year.
with the rates where they were. So the market has obviously shifted a bit, and I hear deal flow has been slower even for the bigger folks like you guys who have probably good deal flow. Is that what you've been experiencing, or have you been seeing quite a few great apartment complexes coming your way?
One of the benefits, one of the benefits of networking is you start to get tied into a lot of people, and if you show that you can perform and you're a good person, and people know, like, and trust you, they bring you deals all the time. And I don't have the time, honestly, to analyze most of those properties. So what we do is we stick with, I think there's probably about 4 different operators that we work with at this point that bring us projects. And depending on what we're working on, like right now, this quarter or last quarter, we didn't take any projects just because we're working on a couple of other things for our kind of our passion project, which is helping other veterans get started in this business. And so we didn't focus on any properties, capital raises, anything. So at this point, though, like we're passively raising for our fund, which is an Airbnb, a short-term rental fund. And so, are there good deals out there? Yes, there are absolutely good deals. But the fastest and most efficient way to find them is to find the people first, in my
So
opinion.
yeah, absolutely. That's definitely been my experience. I think about integrity of the deal requires understanding how to underwrite. You might not be a professional or an expert at that, but at least being able to analyze a property. And just for my audience, this is how I got through it. And then integrity of the partnership. So, like, really getting out there,
Yes.
networking, meeting people, and finding folks who have similar values. And that's pretty much how I've gotten started. And I'm curious though, now you're in Costa Rica. How did you network when you were getting into multifamily? What was your approach? Did you go to meetups, or how did you dive into the space?
Well, in the beginning, it felt like we were trying to catch a moving train, right? So we went to everything. We got on as many podcasts as we could. We talked to as many people as we could. We went to every meetup, every convention. And at some point, you're like, this is not sustainable. My brother, so I'm more of the visionary. My brother, who's my partner, he's more of the integrator, if you've ever read Traction.
Yep.
So he's very detail oriented. He actually came up with, I'm laughing at now I think about it because I hated it, but he came up with a checklist and we would review it like, all right, what are we doing at this convention? Who are we looking to talk to? And we'd have like this. And then we had, you can go on your phone and you can make these business cards now, and you can people just scan your QR code and they get your business information. So he did all that. So we would have that, and we became pretty efficient at networking. And then something happened in 2020. So we started in 2018, mind you. In 2020, I don't know if anybody will remember this, but something that called COVID hit the area and everybody went virtual, right? And it made it a lot easier. And so right then we got, well, okay, well, how can we do this virtually? And so there are so many ways to network on nowadays through social media that most people don't think about or didn't think about until 2020. And so that's what allowed us to meet a lot of great people. Additionally, if you have beginners that are listening to this, I think the thing that a lot of us, and I made this mistake too, is we don't tell our story. We tell what people want to hear, or we think people want to hear. And believe it or not, your story is probably very similar or resonates in some shape or form with other people. And those are the people you want to work with, because you will naturally form a bond. You will naturally trust them. They will naturally trust you. So in the beginning, if I'm telling a story, I would tell, you tell your, what do you call it? Your highlight reel, right? You tell your highlight reel. And unfortunately, that doesn't resonate with people. A lot of times that comes off as cocky, whatever that may be, right? Whatever
Uh-huh.
highlight reel is. But
Right.
for me as a veteran, I started talking about that. I'm a veteran, and this is what I'm trying to do, right? I'm trying to retire my wife. That's how it started. I'm trying to retire my wife so she could be a stay-at-home mom. Then I'd like to retire myself, and then I would like to retire my mom. And how am I doing that? Okay, I'm buying these cash flowing properties, and what kind of properties? All right, these are the kind that I like because of this, this, and this, and it supports my goal. And you're talking about your story, but in the beginning, I was talking about everything I heard everybody else talk about on podcasts, because I thought that would attract more investors and more partners and bring us more deals. And that's just not how it works, because it's inauthentic, right? And it comes across in your facial expression, in your speech, and whatever. So tell your story and you will connect with the right people, whether you're trying to raise capital, find deals, whatever. That's my experience anyway.
You're already starting with such great advice. And that resonates. I was just like, what is his name? Is it Hunter Thompson?
Yeah, I know
The
him.
guy capital raising. I
Yeah,
just saw last night, he was saying most people are going to invest in your deal, not because it's like the best deal in the world. It's because they really believe in your story and they want to invest in you. And so that was really timely because I was drafting an email to my potential investors and it was all about like AAR and multiple, like the equity multiple, which is important, but it's not, maybe I don't lead with that, you know?
yeah,
So I love that you're really affirming this. It seems like advice from the universe that's coming to me right now as I'm doing my first raise to really, I guess, connect with folks on it. It's authenticity is so important. So thank you for
yeah,
that.
yeah. It is. It is very powerful. I don't even know how. I didn't. I don't know how else to convey it. Like it is very important. But here's one thing that I found. Jim Rohn said this, right? So he says this famous quote. If you guys don't know Jim Rohn, he's a famous life coach, business coach. Almost everybody quotes him. But one of his quotes is, "Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. If you work hard on your job, you can make a living. If you work hard on yourself, you can make a fortune." And he's tying it back to money. But then he goes on to say, your net worth will never exceed your personal development. And what does that mean? And so I found this out real quick. When you approach somebody, let's say you're asking for money, you're asking for a deal, you have a deal, whatever it is, you are going to, based on how much you value yourself, that's how you will present, right? So if you don't think you're worthy of this deal, if you don't think you're worthy of this person's attention, if you don't think, a great example is you're at a bar and you see a beautiful woman or man across the room. If you don't believe you're worthy of their attention, you will not approach them, right? And we use money as value, as a symbol of value. And so a lot of people tie that to self-value, which is not true, but self-value does exhibit itself in how much you make, because you will never go after that job. You will never go after that investor until you believe you are worthy of it. And so I think that is one of the most important things. If you can get clear on who you are and what you like and tell that story and be worthy of that and feel worth of that, people will resonate with that and you can do some amazing things.
Wow, that's really powerful. And I could tell so the way I found you was through Eric Nelson's podcast with the real estate mindset. And it
Mhm.
sounds like you've done a lot of work on mindset to have that type of clarity. At that time, I don't know what year you interviewed with him, but you and your brother were talking about how you had done a lot of the things on your own. And so he does
Yeah.
ask about like, do you invest in coaches? And you guys were kind of new to investing in coaches. So I'm curious, you're quoting Jim Rohn and whether you are working with a coach that is helping you through your own personal development. I know we read a lot of the same books, but are you pouring into a coach to help with that development?
Um, yeah, so that is I've had a tough one with that. It's always been tough for me, coaches. And that's probably a block of mine, honestly, because maybe somewhere along the line, like I don't think I've had two coaches at this point, and they were Jason Drees coaches. If you are familiar with him, he was actually the coach to Brandon Turner, who's pretty big in the space as well.
Oh,
If you've ever
wow.
heard of Brandon Turner, yeah.
Of course.
But Jason Drees, he does some great stuff, and just based on how you're kind of talking, I think you really like some of his stuff. He has a podcast as well, but a lot of it's about alignment, aligning your thoughts with your actions, with your feelings, and to get what you want out of life. But I had two coaches that come out of his. But the issue I had was, and this is the funny part, and maybe again, this is just me being, I don't know if cocky is a good word, but I never felt like they were telling me anything that I didn't know. For example, they would ask me a question and I would always come up with the answer. And they're like, yeah, that's great. Do it. I'm like, well, I mean, I could have done that. I could have just asked myself that question. So I had trouble with it. Now, I'm not saying I don't have mentors. I probably average, I don't know. I read a lot of books. I listen to a lot of books, actually, I should say. And when I find one, I'll listen in on repeat until I can almost repeat the book. And like, for example, a book right now I'd highly recommend anybody read is a book called A Happy Pocket Full of Money. And I've read it 3 times in the past 2 or 3 weeks. And I would absolutely recommend it to anybody. But a lot of my mentoring, I read Alex Hormozy's books ad nauseum. I've read Russell Brunson's books ad nauseum. I've read Hunter Thompson's book. I've actually, and talk about manifestation. Like we ran into Hunter Thompson multiple times at different conferences. It's funny now. He's a lot smaller in person.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Interesting.
He's a good person though. He's a really good dude. But that's the point. The point is like you can have 100 mentors, right? And you get to pick and choose those mentors. And if you ever read one of my favorite books, and I think everybody should read this book, whether you want to get wealthy or not, is Think and Grow Rich. And I have it right above me, but
Yep.
Think and Grow Rich, he talks about that. You draw from these people, and whether you like it or not, that what you put into your mind will come up in some shape or form, right?
Yep.
And so if you are consuming Netflix every night, if you're consuming whatever talk show, that's going to come back in how you perform as an athlete, as a human, as a business owner, as a husband, wife, whatever. So while I don't have that many coaches, I'm very intentional about who I listen to. And when I find something good, I listen to it until it becomes a manuscript for how I think.
I love that. I also read Think and Grow Rich, and I think that's one that I will repeat every year just to make sure I return to it. Something that stands out to me about you is that you not only consume the material, but you also apply it. And I think that's where some people maybe get stuck is they're learning, but then not applying. So this is your call to action to apply the things that you're learning and really about bringing it back to the statement you made that was really powerful about manifesting your own self-worth. So the more that you consume healthy material that can then help you strengthen your belief in yourself, your vision, your abilities, then you're going to put
Absolutely.
yourself in front of those opportunities. And you are living proof of that. So that's really, really inspiring.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I have something else too that I think is very powerful that I don't think enough of us appreciate. And I'm mentioning these books and like Think and Grow Rich. I've talked to a lot of people about that. Same thing with Happy Pocket Full of Money. The problem there is a lot of people have this mental block between, oh, they're talking about all this metaphysical mumbo jumbo, think, and then it happens, right? And the science behind it is very fascinating at this point. Whether you believe in the spiritual side of it or not, doesn't matter. They're finding that, I'm sorry, my dog's going, but they're finding that. So there's this part in the brain, it's called the reticular activating system. And everybody just like, okay, cool. It's the doorman to your brain, but it essentially filters out all the, what we call unimportant information, right? And what happens is if you write down a goal and you internalize that goal and you write down, you look at it every day or a vision board or whatever that is, and this is it, right? Think and grow rich. If you do that, your mind is going to filter out. So again, your conscious mind, it only sees around 50 to 100 bits of information per second. The unconscious mind will see anywhere between 10 to 11 million bits of information, but filters the rest out based on what you deem is important. So if you're watching the news, if you're watching Netflix, if you're listening to music, like that's what's important to you, and that's what you're going to see. And additionally, or if you decide, hey, I want to buy real estate, I want to raise money, I want to learn how to analyze an apartment complex, or maybe your goal is just to increase your income, I don't know, $10,000 this year. If that is your goal and you are intent on that, you will start to identify as you walk through this world, you will start to identify the people, places, and opportunities that will lead you to that goal. And that's how that works. But most people think it's this spiritual come out of the ether, which, I mean, you could think of it that way. It's always been there. We just don't notice it. So you have to be intent. I use this, I call it C2AD. So if you're clear about what you want, absolutely 100% clear about what you want about life. And this should apply to all things, but usually we only apply it to a couple things in our life. So it should be clear about your relationships, clear about your finances, clear about your body, your health, and it should be clear about your mindset and anything else in between. If you're absolutely clear on that, you will be able to commit to it. And when you're committed to it, it's much easier to take action. And so you mentioned taking action, and I find that is one of the biggest problems. Most people will consume a ton of things, but they will not take action. But again, if your commitment is tied to your why, to the clarity of why you want something, action is inevitable.
I love that. But you leave me hanging here because you said C2AD. So it's clear, commit, action. And what's the D?
Oh, daily. Because the more action you take, it just becomes this flywheel. and you just are drawn to take even more and more action because it's kind of like this circle or square. It's like I've identified what I want, so I commit to it, I take action, and I get feedback from that action. And then it goes around and like, okay, I get clearer on what I want, commit to that, take more action, get feedback. Now I get even clearer, and it just keeps going and keeps going. And that could be like our that could sum up my investment journey, or my brother and I's investment journey building our business, honestly, because you try, that didn't work, we reapply, we try, and you just keep going until you get better and better. And even to this day, like there's nothing perfect about our business, in our opinion, right? People outside looking in say, hey, great job, you guys are doing great. And we're like, are you kidding? We want to be here and we're still doing this. And like, that's just how it goes, though. You're always clarifying, you're always recommitting, you're always taking new action. And that's the
Wow.
game.
I love that so much. So a fun play on words, the capital investment group I started in January is called Matrix Arch. It's a play on the word matriarch because it's founded by two women. But
Love
when
it.
you look at the definition of matrix, that's an environment through which something develops. And what I've seen time and again with very ambitious and successful people is you develop and then you hit a certain level of, you're like, okay, I've reached my goal. And you don't just stop there. They typically arch to the next matrix of development. And it's just, you keep going. And so to your point about just taking action, if you don't take the action, you're not going to get the feedback. You're not going to get the clarity. So just keep going. And I actually love what your brother did with the metrics. Have you read 12-Week Year?
Nice. No.
Okay, I'm recently getting into it, and it's about just really clarifying the metrics around the actions you're taking and shortening so that you accomplish in 12 weeks what most people accomplish in 1 year. And it comes down to actually daily activities and whether you're hitting 85% of the activities that you deem critical to your success. And so,
Mm.
I had this goal of by August 31st, and I wrote it in my high performance journal that I would be a GP on an apartment complex. And it happened. And it's not like I sat there and dreamt about it and just manifested. I had a very systematic way of networking with people. I was underwriting a deal, at least I had a goal of every week, but probably every other week, so that I could
Yeah.
learn how to speak to a property or assess a property. And then I was also connecting with people very systematically. And in fact, this podcast is a way to connect systematically. So it makes me accountable to getting the reps in. And I have this goal because of Alex Hormozy. He said that it's like less than 1% of podcasters get to 21 episodes. So I'm like, I need to get to 21. And then next from there,
Yes.
it just keeps rolling, right? So everything you're saying is resonating. Like, have a dream, be clear on it, but take some action and keep going. So very, very cool. And what also excites me is that you are two brothers who have pretty similar drive. And you are aligned in what you want to do, and it sounds like you work really well together. I'm sure that there are different areas of blurred boundaries because you're brothers, but it sounds like it's working
Oh,
out
yeah.
pretty well.
Yes. Yeah. We've been pretty close since we were kids.
Do you
So,
mind me asking the age
uh,
difference?
yep. I'm the oldest. He's 4 years younger than me. So
Okay,
I'm
cool.
44. He's 40.
Nice. My sons are 2 years and 10 months, so they're 20 months apart. And I'm really hoping they're going to
Mm.
be like you guys, like really just best buddies for life and also business
Well,
partners.
yeah, they'll be at each other's throats until, yeah. Well, we fought a lot as kids, and then we broke off on our own paths, and we reconvened to build this business. So it's been amazing. Yeah, I don't think I've ever been closer to him, actually.
Oh, that
Ever.
is so
So
lovely. And is he in the States and you're in Costa Rica?
he is, but he's in Phoenix. Him and his wife, they have two kids, two boys. We have two girls, complete opposite. But yeah, he lives in Phoenix, and I don't think they'll probably leave just because his wife's family's from there. And my mom lives in Arizona as well. But yeah, I mean, we're on meetings twice, 2 to 3 times a week, and then we meet up for different conventions and events. So yeah,
Very,
all the
very
time.
nice.
Yeah.
Actually, if you don't mind me asking just what your week looks like, because you're doing Airbnbs, you have multifamily, you have the hotel, and it sounds like for more than 2 decades, you were very committed and disciplined, you know, like special force operator, like who just did a lot of work. I imagine you had probably a crazy schedule then, but what does it look like now? Do you work 40 hours a week? Is it a 9 to 5, or are you able to do a few hours each day? Like, what does your life look like now?
I think, and a lot of people are going to want me to say I only work like 1 hour a day and there's all this passive income coming in, but you can't turn it off.
Yeah.
once you, and my wife's probably snickering in the background because she wants me to turn it off a lot, but I think there's a, I'm a huge proponent of, I don't want this to come across the wrong way, but well, personal development, and let's go a step further, personal development and masculine development, and then feminine development as well. Because when we step into and I'm not trying to say any role is superior or inferior or whatever, but when you step into your role, whatever that may be, there's an empowerment. And when you have your perfect opposite, it creates a synergy that allows you to do so many things. And so what I mean by that is most men, myself included, we can't shut it off, because when we have an idea, when we have a mission, when we have and maybe there's women like this too, and I don't mean that, it's not gender specific. I'm just saying this is my experience. But in the role I'm in, when I have a vision and I'm committed to that, it's hard for me to turn it off. So there has to be a conscious place. And so what I'm getting at is I get up at 4 a.m. I do personal development from 4 to 5. Then I do my deep work from 5 to 6. The kids get up. I have to shut it off. It shuts off. Not always, but I try to shut it off then. And that's when it's time to get the kids up, to be with my wife, to have breakfast. And then the kids are out the door at around 7:30. I'm usually off at the gym for an hour or working out. A lot of times lately, I've been working out just outside here at my house in Costa Rica, which, by the way, is extremely sweaty and hot. But then after that, work starts around 10:30, and that's typically when I'm either on investor calls or we started a coaching arm as well, and so we do a lot of consulting for people that are a lot of veterans trying to get into the space. So those are the two things I usually do, and that goes until from 10:30 to 2:30, so it's about 4 hours. And it depends on what the project is that we're working on. So I could be heads down all day just writing a book or building out a course material, or on investor calls or podcasts. I have my own podcast as well. So it just depends on what day of the week. Additionally, we have 2 team meetings per week as well. So
That sounds great. That's actually very much in line with, I wrote down my vivid vision, and literally from the minute I opened my eyes to the minute I closed my eyes each day, what my life would look like. And I sent that off to my coach, and I'm like, this is what I'm going to achieve in 3 to 5 years. So except for I don't see myself waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning. What time do you go to sleep if you're getting up that early?
So we go to bed anywhere between 9 to 10. So typically about 6 hours of sleep. Yeah.
And the kids get up at 6?
Yeah. I have to, get them up. I have to drag them.
That's pretty early for the kiddos. How old are they again?
So I got a 10 and a 6-year-old. We have to leave. I don't know that I was just difficult as a kid. I didn't have any sisters, so I'm not sure, but we got to do their hair, and they're it's just different. I don't know. I throw on a hat, I'm ready to go. And so that, you got to be, I'm learning to be delicate with them, and takes time, obviously. So taking care of them and getting them off to school, and an emotional, it can be an emotional roller coaster, but we're trying to keep it, steady and consistent, and have them get a healthy breakfast and all that. And that family time, sitting down together, we're huge on that. So.
Oh, wow. You even get it done in the morning. That's impressive.
Yeah.
That's great.
Well, yeah, the studies behind it are pretty fascinating. And I came up, I hate to say this, my mom hates when I say this, but I came up from my dad took off when I was young. And both my parents, my mom was a flight attendant, and my stepdad, when he married, he was an entrepreneur, and it was hectic. And I think a lot of that contributed to what I did later on in life. And so, I want to create that stable. I mean, think about it. The morning is the most important part. If you're to ask me, it's it sets the stage for the rest of your day. And so if you're pushing the kids out of the school by eating, standing up, and yelling at everybody, hurry, go, 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 go. That's the anxiety you're sending them off to school with. We are by no means perfect parents, but I think that is a huge piece that we've put into place that we're really proud of. So
it's so important that you mentioned this, because I am born and raised in the Bay Area, and I didn't realize what a rat race this is, because this is all I know. But then when we started living in Macedonia part-time, I had to slow down, because that's just the culture. You just slow down.
Yeah.
And in the first few summers that I went, it drove me crazy. I didn't know what to do with myself. And so then it was like, okay, bring books. And so then I brought books. I actually only started learning about real estate a year ago in August on a beach in Greece. I was reading Brandon Turner books.
Oh,
And
that's
so,
phenomenal.
yeah.
I hope
So
you
it
got
took
pictures for your before and after.
I should, right? I think I do have a picture on the beach with a Brandon Turner book, one of the more basic ones. And then I started using the Brandon Turner journal and just took massive action between then and now. It's only been a year. And yeah, so I really started to learn how to slow myself down and how important that is. And in Europe, they slow down in August, and that's typically when we go.
Yeah.
And I was looking at this person's Instagram. She's a funny mom on Instagram, but she was talking about, kids are feeling anxiety because they're always rushed out the door, but what parent doesn't rush their kid out the door? If you let a toddler put on their shoes, it's going to take them 75 minutes. And
Mm.
I'm like laughing at that partly, but also part of my vision for why I want to make so much money in real estate or other acquisitions is so that I can have a slow morning with my kid. That's what I want so much. I don't exactly have that right now, but it is such an important part of the day. Maybe it's not necessarily slow, but just not rushed. And I don't think a
Yeah.
lot of American parents know what that feels like. And I want more of them to know.
Yeah. Yeah. It is funny. We went to Spain this summer. My stepdad lives in Ibiza now with my little brother. I have a little brother as well. And we went to visit him and it like, there's nap time.
A true
You know what I mean?
siesta, huh?
Yeah, like I went, I think at one point went to get a haircut or a coffee. Everything was shut down. It was like 2 in the afternoon. Like, nope, everything, it's siesta time. I think they said that as a half joke, but everything was shut down. I don't know if actually people are napping, but everything was shut down. So I don't know. It's pretty
These
funny.
built in throughout the day. Or even when I worked in Costa Rica, actually, I was there in my corporate job and they would all go outside to have lunch for like 2 hours. And I was looking around like so anxious and nobody's talking about work at lunch. So I was like, what are we doing? We have stuff we need to get back to. And they're like looking at me
Yeah.
like, why are you at your desk right now? It's time to eat. So
Yeah.
these cultural differences. I want more and more of my listeners to get a feel for it. I want them to experience it. I want them to strive for it. It really, the cortisol in your body when you're rushing all the time is very real. So
Yes.
just
Yeah.
a reminder to slow it down when you can. And you mentioned growing up, your mom is a flight attendant, your stepdad, entrepreneur. And I'm curious, how, if at all, did they talk to you about money in your upbringing?
Well, I would say we were blessed with my stepdad, and I call him my dad, but he worked really hard and he put us in some amazing places. We lived in California, moved to New York, then down to Florida, and then I graduated high school in Utah, Park City, Utah, which is a beautiful place to, graduate high school from. I was one of my sports classes was a 2 hour skiing. It was skiing. Like that's amazing, right? Or mountain biking in the warmer months, but unbelievable. But there was never enough money. And so that was, I think that's where a lot of the stress came from. And that's why they ended up separating, running a business together for 20 some years. And I think that, the stress of having to make money month after month, there was no talk about passive income. There was no talk about residual income. There was no education on that piece. In fact, I remember the conversation like, Ashton, you're turning 18 next year, you're going to graduate. There's no money for you to go to college, so you need to figure something out. You either get a scholarship or, something. And so I didn't want to go to college. I didn't think I was smart enough to go to college at the time anyway. So I was like, military it is, so it made sense. But the point is, like, there was always like this, I don't know, there was always this feeling about not having enough. And so I feel that come up sometimes. And it is something that I have to, obviously, it's a condition, right? It's a conditioned feeling from that experience, but you can get over that stuff, believe it or not. And when you do, all of a sudden, you're living a whole nother life of abundance, which is pretty amazing. Especially in the Western world, we don't really realize how good we have it, whether you're in Europe or, some of these westernized countries, like we have it really good.
For
But
sure.
we run around thinking I don't have the right phone, or I don't have a nice car or a nice chat, whatever it is, but we have it really well. And I think we forget that. That's another gratitude piece. I think I love that, yeah.
Yeah, we do
I
have
feel
it
like a brain
really.
blank. I'm sorry.
No, not at all. Not at all. I am so grateful that you shared that. And you're right. We do have so much to be thankful for. But until you experience the contrast, like even just Amazon, like I mean, for what it's worth. Like I can just think of something, which is I think this is a problem actually. And then it could be at my door in like 4 hours. In Macedonia, that's not a possibility. And I actually love that. In Macedonia, there aren't too many restaurants, which I would miss the variety here. But at the same time, there's not this decision fatigue of like, what are we going to eat? We have so many different options. It's like you eat what's in front of you and you're grateful for that. So,
Costa Rica's the same. Yeah. There's no
yeah.
Amazon down here. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no
And that works.
DoorDash.
No DoorDash. That's right. There's so many things that are just so too convenient, if anything. Yeah. So, you know, when did you make that shift, I suppose? So you're talking about not having enough. I think a lot of us started there, and that scarcity mindset can pervade your adulthood. It did for me. I was making a very strong income for years and still felt like I was like living paycheck to paycheck, which I wasn't. I was amassing savings. I should have been investing it. I was actually just knocking away at my student loans, but I had this scarcity mindset and it took me a while to be like, oh, wait, I have abundance and I can start taking risks and then I can actually make my money work for me. But it took me a while to make that shift. And I'm wondering if there's a moment in time where you decided, oh, actually, or not just decided, but realized that you weren't in a scarcity situation anymore.
I think it's an evolution. It wasn't, there wasn't a moment in time. Um, I always was very optimistic when I was younger. I tended to be the one making the jokes about all the things, all the stressful stuff that was going on, whatever it was, which a lot of times got me in trouble because my dad didn't think it was funny. But I think that carried over into my military career. So it was the same when I was in the military and something was going on and there was bad stuff, I would make a joke about it and it would make light of it. And so in that sense, I was always looking for the positive in every situation, whether to make fun of it or to I mean, that's how I just dealt with stress. And so that was it. And, you can play that game, right? And I got into this habit of playing a game of, well, at least we're not that guy over there, or at least we're not, like for example, we live in a really amazing spot, but right down the road, there's poverty here and there are people and they're content, which is interesting. But they don't have windows. They have mosquitoes flying into the house, no AC. They're small, not nice looking places by Western standards. I don't even know if they have electricity. And so when you start to play those games, like it sounds kind of mean. I would never say this to people's faces, but you're finding one better thought, another better thought, and another better thought. And then till you kind of dig yourself out of that feeling of lack, right? So, I may not have as much as I want, but at least I have this and at least that. And then you building yourself up. And that allows you, again, to get in that mindset of an expanded mindset of abundance. And then you start to see the abundance, right? Because it's a decision. I don't care what anybody says. You do not live in reality. You live in what your perception of reality is. That's all. And you decide your perception, right? Is this good? Is this bad? But what I think is really fascinating. You should ever look at the interviews of some of these billionaires, and I was just watching some the other day, there's a consistency. Now, one, they invest in real estate in some shape or form. Two, they've all been broke at some point, right? Or faced that, whatever that may be, like it could be multi-millionaires, but they faced losing the business, $1 billion business, right? That could be as stressful as living paycheck to paycheck if you think about it. Maybe even more so because you have people depending on you. And so the point is, a lot of these things I think happen. We orchestrate them in our own lives to give us the perspective of, I don't want to go that direction. And when you know what you don't want, you know more clearly what you do want. And so this is what I would say. This is why I would say so many people coming to America from other countries, they're so adamant and so motivated to work hard and make something for their family because they've experienced the opposite. Or if you've been raised in the US, it's been so good, right? You don't like, oh yeah, all I have to do is go to college, get a good job, and then I can retire in 40 years, right? And whatever that may be, that's what we tell ourselves anyway.
Yeah.
I think it's great to experience poverty at some level or being broke or that idea. Because if you just look at the statistics, all these huge people, if you look at Trump, love him or hate him, right? He was bankrupt several times. Like you look at these highly, you look at like the starter of Amazon or like all these guys started from nothing. And it's because they had nothing, but they understand it. And it pushed them to build and grow. And so one way to embrace abundance is to embrace how little you had at the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I am reflecting actually on something that you had said earlier about like this condition of you can't turn it off, right? And so some of that, I have that in me, and it stems from a scarcity mindset. And yet, what's
Yeah.
propelling me forward is a vision of abundance and literally meditating on abundance and feeling that in my heart. And there is something to that. I know that some folks are like, what is this woo-woo stuff you're talking about? But truly, it does, what you think, what you feel, what you want really drives the rest of your actions. And so there is this conflict of scarcity that makes me want to strive for more, but then the knowing of abundance that I'm going to achieve that keeps me going. But I also have to pause to just be present and enjoy the abundance that I currently have and have that
Yeah.
gratitude. And that is a constant exercise for me because I want to, be present with my kids when I'm sitting there playing on the floor, you know, and not wanting to like put in an earpod and listen to a book so I could be learning at the same time. So I'm like, okay, just be present, so
Yeah.
I feel like we
Have
have
you,
some, yeah.
I was going to say, are you familiar with the quote by, I think it was Lao Tzu, who said, if you're depressed, you're living in the past. If you have anxiety, it's because you're fearful of the future. But if you're at peace, you're living in the present. And I think that's very powerful.
Absolutely.
But I think too many of us, we're always anticipating the future or regretting the past in some shape or form, or we're blaming our present on the past. And therefore, you're living in your past. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Are you familiar with Joe Dispenza's work?
Oh, love is tough. Yeah.
Okay, because a lot of what you're
Mhm.
saying is a completely in line with that. And what I also appreciate is that they've studied it. So to your point about there's science, like just science behind some of these things with the meditation and the, not just manifestation. Again, I don't want to lose my audience here. There's action that you need to take, but there is something to that with being present, but also forward thinking. Yet many, many, many of us are programmed to live in the past and we don't even realize it. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
all right. I know we only have about 10 minutes left. There's so many different things I'd love to ask you about, but just to come off of this scarcity mindset, is there a moment in time that you remember having a very low amount in your bank account, what your mindset was, and then how did we kind of dig out of there to get to where you are today?
Ron, yeah, that's a good question. So I've had that a couple times, and we like times when we thought we were going to lose the business, or we are going to have to lose a property, or lose a deal. The military was good. I mean, throughout the military, like I had a steady paycheck the whole time, and I did something that I was really good at, and that. But the problem there was conflict there because it created conflict with my family. I was gone all the time.
Yeah.
So when it came to creating my own income, that was a whole nother hurdle I had to face. And so, yeah, there was definitely times I faced that. But, I think what you have to understand, and you've mentioned it multiple times, and I think I have too, but is the alignment, right? And so if we were to say the most important thing I do right now in the present moment is align with the future I want to see, then thinking about how little or much I have in the bank account is irrelevant because that was all in alignment with my past thoughts, speech, and action. And so my thought, speech, and action led me to only having X amount in my bank account, whatever that may be.
Mhm.
So if I ponder that, I am pondering the past, right? I'm not saying don't learn from it. I'm just saying be in the present moment. So how can I align my thoughts, words, and action in this present moment? And so a lot of guys, I understand this. There's a lot of anxiety around money. There's a lot of anxiety around having money or not having enough. But if that is the anxiety, you need to get out of your mind and more back into your body because your body is always present, but your mind is reeling about the future, about the past, whatever, right? And so, how we do that, and this is something we're developing in our masterclass as well as we're creating a group for veterans to do this, is to work on yourself. You do have to work on yourself. And a great example, and I'll give a great example of this, is a parachuting accident I had while I was in the military. I jumped out. It was nighttime. It was actually snowing. I could feel the snow hit my face as we're falling through the clouds. And I was younger, and I opened my parachute wrong. I was in the wrong position, which allowed my parachute to wrap around my feet.
Oh my God.
And I had full combat equipment. So I had whatever, 50, 60-pound rock, my gun, everything. We had everything, right? And I was like, I had rehearsed this particular instance so many times because you're supposed to. You do this before every jump. You rehearse, what am I going to do? I'm going to pull my cutaway handle. I'm going to pull my reserve parachute. And so everything slows down when you are in the moment because you're not thinking about the future. You're not thinking about the ground rushing up to meet you. You're not thinking about what I should have done different before I pulled the first time. You don't think about that. It's all in the moment. And there's a great book. It's called The Rise of Superman by Stephen Kotler. And he talks all about this. But threatening, very challenging scenarios, very threatening scenarios where there's a lot of risk involved, they tend to do this. They bring you into the present moment. And that's when your awareness becomes, like right now, you're processing 50 bits of information. It becomes 1,000,000 bits of information. And you can process it all at one time. And that's that heightened state of awareness that we should operate at. But believe it or not, it's not in your mind. It's in your body. And so in meditation, we can do that. Breathing exercise. I'm huge into breathing work right now, breath work. There's a guy on YouTube, highly recommended if you want to check it out. It's Breathing with Sandy. He does all these different, and it is unbelievable. It'll get you out of your mind and into your body, into the present moment. But there's other ways too. Like you can do extreme sports, you can do cold plunges, you can do, MMA, anything that's challenging or risky. It could be just talking in front of in front of the public. Now it can't be too risky because then you're overwhelmed. It can't be too challenging, then you're overwhelmed and you can't actually be in the moment. But that's what I would say to people. That has helped me immensely, life-changing, absolutely life-changing. I can tell you, I could probably recount like a couple hundred scenarios like that. I've been in, deployed to combat multiple times at this point, and that's what happens in those moments. I've literally seen the bullets skip right in front of me, and I don't know how to explain it. Like, how do I see something that's moving at 6,000 feet per second? Right? I saw all four of them.
Wow.
And so that's what I'm talking about. When you get out of your mind, none of that past stuff, I don't want to cuss, none of that past stuff and none of that future stuff matters. You're currently present and you're able to respond to the present environment, whether that's analyzing a deal, whether that's raising capital, whether that's being with your family, right? But we miss that. We miss that so much because we live in the future and we live in the past. I'm not saying you shouldn't visualize your future. I'm just saying you should have alignment. And if we're always thinking about our future, our actions, our thoughts, speech, and action may not align enough in the present moment because we're living in the future. And same thing with the past. If we're blaming the past, like my parents did this, the government this and that in the past, and that's why I am where I am, we miss out on our present moment and our ability to actually create and respond.
Right. There's like this intensity to when the pressure is on, or not pressure, but you just have to be so deeply present that you are so much more aware, and then you become that much more effective. And it speaks to, again, that Joe Dispenza work where you let go of the ego and you're all in your body and you just open up to quantum field. Again, now I'm losing my audience. They're gonna be like, what is this woo-woo stuff? But truly,
we started. Yeah,
I know. We could have a whole separate session just on that. Oh my
what's interesting, Amanda, though? If you start, so I'm in a mastermind where there's some really high net worth people in there. You have to be a certain net worth to be in there. And I'm probably like almost barely made it through the door kind of thing. These guys are buying and selling islands, but they all talk like that.
Yeah, because it's real.
Yeah.
It is real. And that is exactly how I believe I'm going to achieve the goals that I have in my mind. I'm almost embarrassed to say it out loud, some of the things that I'm striving for. And yet I also have to think in this moment, what would millionaire Amanda do? And so that's how I have to operate, right? So, oh my goodness, you have given us some really incredible advice from the beginning. I'm going to pick up Happy Pocket Full of Money. I have not heard of Rise of Superman. And then also breath work or breathing with Sandy. Is that what you were referring to when you said from you wake up at 4 o'clock and then I think from 5 to 6, you were saying you do deep work. And what did you mean by that?
So 4 to 5 is my personal deep work. And then 5 to 6 is business deep work. And so usually I'm creating content or writing or because you have a blog. I try to post almost daily on several different platforms, stuff like that. So that's my deep work. But then the deep work on myself is breath work, meditation, some stretching. And then I also do every morning, I don't have it out, but every morning I write out my vision and what I'm grateful for, and I just let it flow.
Yeah. Reticular activating system. Got to write
Yeah.
that out, put it in front of yourself and see what happens. And so, wow, I am beyond impressed and inspired by you and your journey, and even just getting to share this moment, this present moment with you right now. Thank you. If there were any pieces of advice, you've already given so much, but is there anything else you'd like to close with as advice for our listeners?
Yeah, I think one of the things that the biggest realization I had was embrace the moment, because it is part of the building blocks. It is part of the steps, right? Everybody wants the view without the journey. And I realized this back in the military, going through selection, like face down in the mud. We're doing burpees in like a foot of muddy water. And they thought it was hilarious. But at the time, I was just like, this is what I'm doing to get to where I want to go. Right.
Yeah.
And if you can embrace that with everything, it took me a while. It took me 20 years to figure that out in business, or 20 years later, I applied it to business anyway. But that's the point. Like right now I'm broke, or right now I don't have what I want, or right now we're struggling with whatever, this deal fell through, or right now I can't raise that capital, or whatever, right? That is the step. That is
Yeah.
it. Embrace it. If you knew all the steps to get there, it would be easier. Sure. Another concept is, like, I got this from a sales guy. He said, if you knew that your first $50,000 sale, or $50,000, $100 million capital raise would only come after 100 no's, you'd be excited to get your first 20, your first 30, your first 40. Like, that's what I'm talking about. Every moment is that moment. Every moment is that no, and you're that much closer to whatever you want. Right. So
Yeah.
embrace it. It's not that it's hard, it's that we resist the current moment. Right. We resist it, like, this is not supposed to be happening. Well, how the heck do you know? Right.
Right.
So, yeah.
That is so
Anyway.
true. I had that same struggle actually when I started in the multifamily space, because it's really hard to imagine how this is going to accelerate your wealth, especially when you're
Mhm.
taught go to school, get your degree, get the job, get the house. Like these are the things that are very linear, and it's not linear if you take the right moves. Like you said, take action, get more clarity, and keep going. And so embracing the moment involves some of those steps where your face is in the mud, and you have to just know this is the step. And I am going to really take that in, because I, you know, I, I'm going to cuss. Shit happens in real estate. Things are
Let's-
not straightforward, and that is par for the course. And you have to have the emotional resilience to not get too caught up in the past or the future of it. Just be highly efficient in that moment by being present. So embrace the moment. What a great
Yes.
way to end it. I heard you say you post several times on different platforms. So, I'm going to guess that a lot of my listeners are going to want to find you online. So, where can they look?
So my brother and I both post on LinkedIn almost daily. We have a blog post on our website, www.valkeregroup.com, but we also post on Instagram and TikTok. Not so much on TikTok as much right now, but Instagram and TikTok, and then Facebook as well. So
Awesome.
we're all over. Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
Valkere, Valkere. And what a pleasure to be with you today, Ashton. Thank you so much for your time. And I'll be cheering you on and hopefully stay in touch.
Likewise, Amanda. Thank you so much for having me. And I can't wait to see the rise of this. What was it? The Matrix?
Matrix Arch Capital. Yeah.
Matrix Arch Capital. Awesome. Awesome. I
Thank
can't
you
wait to
so.
see. Yeah.
Thank you. Today's episode was sponsored by Matrix Arch Capital. And you can find me on Instagram at Amanda the Investor. Send me a message. I'd love to hear from you.